I'm Carol Owens, and this is Stockbridge Updates. There's a very interesting issue this month. First, we're going to talk about your all-time favorite subject, taxes. There are 4 tax increases. There are 4 tax increases proposed. We don't know which will pass, but you can be thinking about which ones you like. One is a $25 surcharge for every $500 of value of your vehicle. Not a favorite. The other is a health insurance penalty. Now, this one I really don't understand. So there's an additional cost on your health insurance, called a penalty, on everyone whose income exceeds $22,000 a year. That may be everyone. There's a local hotel tax increase. It has been at 6%, and there's discussion of it moving to 7%. And then there's discussion on an addition or raising the meal tax. So 2 out of 4 seem reasonable. The state has been very busy, and we've been talking about it in earlier issues. We have a section called State House Updates. And just remember that on February 2nd, the accessory dwelling unit by right, that means it can be built without going to any local board and asking any kind of permit or permission. And that went into effect on February 2nd. So now we can all have ADUs, provided we can afford the per foot building cost, which they say is between $200 and $400 per square foot to build, but that it is expected to rise to as much as $600 per square foot to build, and the maximum size of an ADU, of an accessory dwelling unit, is 900 square feet. Now, the editorial in this issue is turning conflict into community. And I just think at this time in our history, that's a really good thing. And if we can do that using courtesy and caring about one another, we seem to have entered a time in our country where every problem is described as binary. It's this or it's that. And you know, the funny thing is, very few problems are two-sided. Most of them are multifaceted. And there's plenty to discuss. And there's plenty to share, and there's a lot that we agree on. Take, for example, in Stockbridge. Right now, there's dissatisfaction with the Affordable Housing Trust in one section in town. Others feel the Affordable Housing Trust is very necessary, and they're very supportive of it. But that's not the world of discussion. I'm for it, you're against it, you're against it, I'm for it. It doesn't make a discussion, it makes an argument. But think about the things we agree on. We agree that everyone who wants to live in Stockbridge should be able to find housing. As a matter of fact, we agree that all our friends and neighbors should be able to afford decent housing. We agree that we need a mechanism inside our government to assure that our housing is fair priced, and readily available. Is that the Affordable Housing Trust? I don't know. Are there other choices? I don't know. If it is the Affordable Housing Trust, how should that be organized? Look at how much there is to discuss without rancor and without conflict. So look into the issue this week. It will be out on February 15th, and we hope you find something interesting and helpful there. Now, I'm excited because I love my guest. His name is Nick Paleologos. He is the executive director of our Berkshire Theater Group. And watch out, He's funny. Nikki, welcome.
Hello, Carol. Nice to see you.
It's always so good to see you. Now, the first thing you should tell us is what's the season for Berkshire Theater Group?
I wish I could. You brought me here 2 weeks before Kate McGuire is going to announce the season. So I'm not going to steal her thunder, but I can tell you it's going to be fun. It's going to be an interesting season, building on last year. We've really had the benefit of some tremendous shows that have been doing so well. I mean, all I've been hearing about is, we're coming out of COVID, and are people going to come back to the theater? They've been coming in droves. Last year, Abe Lincoln in Illinois practically sold out. Up in Pittsfield, we had the highest grossing show ever with Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, which was a hoot. So we're looking forward to another successful season this year. And like I say, Kate will announce it at the end of the month.
Well, that's great. And I just have to say about last year, I saw a couple of things, and I just enjoyed them immensely.
Oh, that's great.
Time just flew by. They were wonderful. And I'm sure you take requests.
Yes.
Like on the radio station.
Of course.
So I would just like to say, and typical, I don't remember the name of it, but there's this great play. There's a great play about the Sun Recording Studio in the South. And one day, this is supposed to have really happened, and one day, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Perkins, what was Perkins' first name? Carl Perkins, all stopped in at Sun Studios at the same time. What's the name of the play?
It's got rock and roll in the title.
Right.
It's not rock and roll man, but it's
you're close.
And by the way, we did that show in Pittsfield 2 summers ago, and before Young Frankenstein broke the box office record, that show was the highest grossing show.
I am telling you, that is the most fun show.
And it was wonderful.
I saw it in Pittsfield
You saw
too.
it?
Yes, that's why I know about it.
And we had done it 5 years earlier, or 10 years earlier, here in Stockbridge.
No, I didn't know about the earlier, but a couple of years ago you did it.
Yeah.
I saw it, and I thought it was so delicious.
Yeah.
And there
Such a
was
fun night.
There was one show you did, and I'm not going to remember the name of that either. Isn't this fun? That I watched the show, walked out of the theater, went to the box office, and bought tickets for the next night.
Oh, that's so great. It is a wonderful feeling, I have to tell you, that to be in the lobby as people are leaving. And you could tell, when they're buzzing and talking to each other and excited.
That's exactly
right. It's an unspoken even energy. You see it on their faces. They light up, and it's a nice thing to be able to do that, especially in times where people are looking for something to feel good about, to feel happy about.
Absolutely, and you're 100% right. You listen to the buzz. You don't have to hear any words. And when the audience is exiting, you can tell if the buzz is, oh my gosh, or wasn't that fabulous?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
now,
it's so true.
We have to get serious.
Okay.
We have a section in Stockbridge Updates called Above the Fold. And that's when we focus on a topic of just wide interest.
Yep.
And this month it's been housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, you have to explain to the audience, because you have a unique housing problem. You always have. You always have. I have to tell you a great little anecdote. Miss Mary Flynn lived on Shamrock Street, and she had a small but kind of adorable house.
Right.
And on the main floor, there was a hallway with a stair in it. And there was a living room, dining room, kitchen. Bing, bing, bing. Okay. Little. You went upstairs. There was the front bedroom and the back bedroom and the big bathroom, the family bathroom.
Yeah.
But then, if you walk back a couple of steps, there's what they called the apartment, which was kind of another bedroom and little alcove area where they had a sort of refrigerator and a chair and a whatever. You know who one of her renters was?
Katharine Hepburn.
That was one. And the other one was, and you're going to tell me her name, the woman who played the Wicked Witch of the West.
Margaret Hamilton.
Margaret Hamilton. And Margaret Hamilton and Mary became such close friends. And she played at Berkshire Theater Festival very often.
Yep.
But even if she wasn't playing, she would come visit Mary and go up the stairs to that little back bedroom.
Well, now you've told me a piece of the puzzle that I actually wasn't aware of. As you know, the Berkshire Theater Festival is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2028. So it was founded in 1928. And it is now kind of part of Berkshire Theater Festival legend that in 1930, Katharine Hepburn came as a young, skinny redhead actress. She signed on for a 3-play contract, and she was supposed to be here for 5 weeks. And she stayed, I didn't know in whose house, but she stayed in a house in which her and 10 other Berkshire Theater Festival actors all stayed, and they all shared a single bathroom.
Right.
Okay. And I didn't know whose house it was, but it tells you that the, by the way, she didn't last long. Hepburn,
oh, and I was
she
going
did
to
one
tell
play.
you that.
Yeah,
right.
She did one play. That was it. She left.
Right. I was going to tell you that. She never did the other two.
No, she didn't.
And she and this is like apocryphal. I don't believe it really happened. But there's a story that she said, you know, she had an exit line after the first one and not doing the other two. And I can't remember what it was, but it was so funny. And, you know, it was Bill Swan that used to tell that story.
No
and she'd
kidding.
say something like, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I've had it. That's it.
This is it.
And it's funny, you know, you mentioned Margaret Hamilton, you know, she did 13 plays over 9 years. And she was a big favorite. There's a story about how when she was here, she would drive the interns to Lee from Stockbridge for lunch and then back. And she had this big roadster. And then at the end of the season, she just gave the car to the kids. She gave her car to the kids. So, but it does tell you, though, you mentioned housing, going all the way back to Katharine Hepburn, you know, and the actors kind of piled in, that the business model of regional theaters like ours, for the longest time, has been essentially exploiting, you know, young actors and young kids that want to be in the theater, who would come here to Stockbridge. They would live in kind of dormitory-type settings, and you could pile 10 of them into, you know, a room, and they'd work long hours for no money, and just get the experience and have it on their resume. Well, those days are over.
One of those people was Lenka Peterson.
Yeah.
Who was at the theater for years after years after years. She stayed with Mary Flynn, and that's another person where they became lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Lenka, and Lenka and I became very, very close friends. She was a wonderful person. Yeah. She used to go, talk about taking advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. And because they were theater struck. They wanted to, they would do anything. So she would go with another young actor in the cast, whatever it was, and they would go over to Elm Street to there was a little luncheonette there, and they would order one sandwich and one drink and go outside and split it.
Yeah, amazing.
Because they didn't have.
That's all they could afford.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Well, you know, fast forward to now.
Yeah.
If you now we have a lot of theaters, you know, between Shakespeare and Barrington and Berkshire Theatre Festival. We're the oldest, going back to 1928. But if you look at today, just take two theaters, Barrington Stage and ours. Between the two of us, in any given year, we're spending $1 million just to house our seasonal artists.
Holy cow.
It is a ton of money, and it's gone up like a hockey stick, and it is one of the reasons why regional theaters are on the knife's edge of sustainability, because we haven't figured out, or we're in the process of trying to figure out, how to deal with the housing situation. I mean, one of the things that why we're excited about the Stockbridge Affordable Housing Trust is because it has the possibility of helping to promote and support artist housing in this area. But ultimately, I think our goal should be to try and bring more artists to the Berkshires to live all year round. We have
David Atkins, doesn't
yes.
he? Yeah.
I mean, the situation over the years has been that actors always want to be in New York. They want to be close to Broadway or off Broadway. They're always looking for that opportunity. And so they're spending a fortune to live in New York just in the hopes that they could get a gig on Broadway, when they could just as easily be living here. And whenever they get the gig in Broadway, they could go down and rent temporarily down there, but they could live here for it's much more affordable. And the truth of the matter is that most of those actors in New York are the ones that we hire.
Yeah.
They're working at our theater and Barrington. And then when the season changes, they work in Florida or in Chicago or that's where all the work is, in regional theaters across the country. Why not live in the area where you're getting most of your jobs, and then on the off chance that you score a Broadway show, sublet your place.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. Make arrangements.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could, like in the movies, you could house trade.
Well, yeah.
If you have a house in the Berkshires, there's a lot of people that would swap with you.
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, everybody talks about how, and it is true, that the population of the Berkshires is shrinking and has been shrinking for some time. Yeah. And part of that is because, young people aren't coming in at the rate that we would like them to and building a life and work here. But it is a hugely attractive place. In my own family, my oldest daughter, who was living in Seattle, got married, moved east, was living just outside of Boston, but fell in love with the Berkshires this year in the same way that I fell in love with it in 1977 as a 20-something.
Absolutely.
And now she bought a house and she's living here with her husband. And all of her friends, she brings them out and says, look at this and look at that. And not only if you're fortunate enough to be able to work from home, and more people are, the cultural life that you have, the life that you can lead if you like hiking or swimming or skiing. I mean, they're in Pittsfield, and it's 5 minutes from Bosque. They don't have to get in the car and put the gear in the car and drive to Vermont. They 5 minutes away and they can go skiing. So it is the Berkshires sells itself. It's just a question of getting people here. And one of the things that I hope is that all of this talk about seasonal housing is important, and it will help us, no question about it. But I'm hoping that seasonal housing leads to permanent housing, that the young people come in and decide, you know what?
Let's stay.
Let's stay.
All right, well, here's a couple of things. First, you said Affordable Housing Trust might be able to help you.
Don't know, but maybe.
Not so much as what the state is doing. So, for example, February 2nd, which was 8 days ago, a week ago, now allows anybody, to build an ADU. ADUs can house people. Mm-hmm. Is there any discussion with Berkshire? If you're spending $1 million...
Well, we're not. But between the two of us, we spend about $300,000 or $400,000. They spend about $500,000 or $600,000.
But even at that,
right?
Have you thought about building ADUs?
Well, for the first time, Barrington Stage and Berkshire Theatre Group are working together, and we're working together on a housing project. And yes, one of the things that we're looking at is that. And the other that we're looking at is trying to identify a location. It's unlikely that it's going to be here in Stockbridge. More likely to be, in Pittsfield, just because it's more central to the two of us.
Lee, right.
Yeah.
Lanesboro, even.
Right.
Well,
Lanesboro's a little bit further.
A little
up.
further, yeah.
But the important thing is that we're kind of pooling our resources and working together for exactly the reason that you said. We're looking at it and thinking, for heaven's sake, that money could be better spent.
The piece of the seasonal community, which is good, it's good and bad. Look, if you want to build community, you're on the right track. If you want to build community, if you want to enhance the population, make it more variety in age, more variety in income. Well, if you want to do all those community building things, then ownership is the way to go.
Right.
But if you're just looking at what am I going to do with my directors, my production people, and my actors?
Which is our immediate problem.
Right, which is the immediate problem, so that I can have a season, so that you and Berkshire Barrington Stage can have seasons, then rental is the answer.
Yeah.
And you know how many years you've rented with me, right? Because I live
longer than I've been here, that's for sure. And I just came in 2018.
Right. So, I'm just saying there are many of us that live in very big places.
Yeah.
So, that, and there's space available. But, so don't forget that.
No, you're kidding.
I'll help if I
can. We
can.
couldn't exist without that.
Right. But the point I'm making is that if you can look at that money as an investment and build.
Right.
The seasonal community allows tiny homes.
Yeah.
And they can't morph into home ownership.
No.
And an ADU is not going to morph into home ownership. It's creating rental spaces.
Right.
And like you said, that's your immediate problem.
Well, you're the exception, to a general rule that has been driving our costs up. Just as an example, yes, the reason why those numbers are so high now and are much higher now than they were even 5 years ago is that people like yourself who were renting for the summer, let's say, to us or to Shakespeare or someone else, figured out that you could just rent for a weekend each week, for 10 weekends over the summer, to people who aren't going to be in there. They're going to be going on the tourist, track.
Right. They come in Friday. They leave on
Monday.
Sunday. There's
no muss, no fuss.
Right.
And by the way, you're getting $300 a night, or
easy.
So there you go. You're getting $1,000 for a weekend times, 10 weekends, and all of a sudden that house that was available to us for a lot less money isn't available to us anymore. And now we have to go somewhere else. And when the somewhere else that we're going, they're saying, well, you got nowhere else to go, and the prices go up.
Yeah. Well, you're telling the story of the Berkshires, and you're telling the story most especially of South Berkshire.
Right.
I've been here 50 years. I came to the Berkshires 50 years ago. And I have watched us change major. I can remember when the first house anywhere in Berkshire County sold for $1 million. Now, there are $1 million houses on Church Street that used to be called Poor Street.
Right.
Not so poor.
No.
And our success, our fortune, has consequences for the people that fall off the other end.
Right.
It's not just Berkshire Theatre Festival or Barrington Stage that say, oh, holy cow, we weren't paying $300 a night.
Right.
That's $9,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's That's actual money.
That's a budget breaker for us.
Right. I mean, that's real, real money.
But falling off the other end of the table is also an important point. I mean, I remember when I first came here 6 years ago and walked into the Playhouse and looked around and said to myself, I am the youngest person in this audience. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. It's okay, that we have a loyal audience that's aging, but we've got to start cultivating,
Well, let me end with this. The entire community, I think, would like, whether it's Tanglewood or whether it's a neighborhood in Stockbridge, or whether, for heaven's sake, it's the high school and the elementary school. All of us would like a broader age group, a more comprehensive economic group. Anyway, you are beyond a delight, I want you to end, and we all wish the Berkshire Theater
Come
Group.
to the Berkshire Theater Group.
We will. Okay. And buy a ticket to the same play on your way out the way I did.
Exactly.
Okay. But I want you to end with our favorite, a Samuel Clemens quote.
Wait a minute. You mean the one that we talked about before?
Whatever one you like.
Oh, man.
Me, my father, and you, we all just love Mark Twain.
My favorite, I guess, if you're going to force me into it, is his quote about old age. Old age isn't so bad, considering the alternative.
We're so happy to see all of you. Join us again. This is Stockbridge Up.